Now we do have just a few minutes and one ground rule so that we can optimize this presentation so that those who would be watching this at a later date can both hear the question and the answer is I ask everyone to speak up on questions. And very quickly, I also want to acknowledge those legislators that are here right now. We have, of course, Senator Harvey, who was here, presented some, Senator Renfro, and Representative Kerr, Senator Schulteis, and Representative Lambert, and looks like Senator Renfro had to run. Oh, it's Cobb. You're Renfro, aren't you? Yeah, I ought to know you by now, shouldn't I? These senators, they all look alike, you know. Someday when I get into the House, yeah, we'll sort out.
Well, I say that anyone under 50 looks the same, looks alike to me.
Well, some of us probably look different then because we're not under. But regardless, Senator Schulteis has the first question.
Yeah, I've got two. It seems like I read within the last month or two that there's another planet in our solar system that is also increasing in temperature, 1 degree or 2 degrees and so forth. And I'm wondering if that has any bearing on the sun, and is the sun related in any way to the global warming, quote, issue that we're dealing with?
Yeah, a lot of people think that the solar effect, that this is due to solar effects. I'm not one of them. The amount of solar differences is so small that it's within the noise level. I mean, we're talking fractions of a 1 watt per square meter and stuff. I could lay out and do a lot of energy work for you here and show how much the sun varies and how much other things like rainfall, ocean currents and things vary, and there's so much more than the variation of the sun. Yes, I know. Well, that's another thing. The people that study, you see, whatever you study, that's the most important thing. People who study the sun always say, well, the sun is a major. Those who study gases, you see, it's all gases. They explain climate change all from gases. Well, there's other things. There's ocean currents, there's cloud, or rainfall, condensation, all these other things. We're all have different, we feel the elephant in different parts and describe it differently. But no, there's so many different ideas. Everyone wants their hand in the pot because there's potential money here. See, the thing you've got to have is reason to get grant money. And you see, another thing with all this is that the number one question with me is it real? Is what is CO2 really going to cause it to? But that doesn't stop agriculturists, environmentalists, everybody else getting the pot in and say, well, if the globe warms, what is it going to mean for the forests and for the farms or all this? Everyone wants in on this big question because there's a reason to get money to study.
Senator Harvey.
Dr. Gray, when you and I were speaking earlier, you mentioned that you thought the oceans were starting to cool and you thought that you would see the climate changing. Could you go into that, but also, when that does happen, what do you think will be the climatologists' response? And what do you think the public policymakers' response will be to that?
Well, I think they will say, well, this is just a little blurb. Yes, we've had other cooling periods, but the long term, the last century warming, yes, we have blurps up and down. This is just a little blurb down. Wait long enough and it's going to start warming. That's what you get first.
Representative John Kerr.
Jim. Let's close.
Yeah.
Jim.
Let's see.
A couple of things. We know we're in a period of global warming.
Yeah.
The period of global warming started about 13,000 years ago. What?
Oh, we're in the Holocene period. Yes, right. Yes, since the last ice age, right? Yeah.
And one of the questions that I've had is, what ended the last ice age? I mean, we had an ice age that lasted for about 100,000 years. And I would be much more concerned about another one of those than this micro management
Yeah,
of carbon
well,
dioxide.
that had the orbital things. With an ice age, you need the orbit, see, there's certain orbital things where you want the summer in the northern hemisphere to be as cool, have as less solar energy in. And then the oceans to function in such a way they bring more snow in the winter, such that the snow doesn't fully melt in the summer. And you gradually build this up. We're in this Holocene period now, and until the global parameters, the orbital stuff changes, which it will, but not for 5 or 10,000 years yet. So the best estimate are we're going to stay in this Holocene period. There's no, people say an ice age might be coming, but from all they know of the orbital parameters and things, that's probably not in the cards for a few thousand years yet. So we shouldn't worry about that.
Representative Lambert.
Thank you. Gray, you mentioned the ocean current
Yes.
effects, possible effects on this, and maybe that's related more to water vapor than CO2. Is there anybody doing reliable modeling of the ocean current effects and how that
There's a
interfaces?
lot of modeling of it. I don't think it's necessarily realistic, though. They don't have the deep ocean modeled yet. I think maybe in time.
It seems like that interface with climatological models would be a necessary input.
Yes, I think we have to get the oceans model right, and they're not done. That hasn't been happening yet. I think when they do, if you get a realistic ocean model, it will help bring some of these warming estimates that the models are presently giving down.
And I'd also ask about geological models, especially volcanology, has been attributed to, releasing a lot of greenhouse gas to volcanic cycles.
Yes, right.
And are there any climatological models that take that into effect?
Well, they do model, individual volcanic eruptions. The globe tends to cool for a year or so, and then you get the particles out of the stratosphere, and it tends to go back to where it was. But nobody knows what the future volcanism's going to be that you can necessarily model that. That comes and goes, warms and cools. Generally cools at certain periods. And anyways, that's probably nothing we can know what's going to happen so well in the future.
I'm just suggesting that maybe that, over the last many hundreds or many thousands of years, that may have had a more profound effect on actual global temperatures than...
No, I don't think people feel that. They know back and they know when the volcanoes occurred and what they did and things. I don't think as a long-term climate change that's thought to be a very significant effect.
One more question.
Representative Jim Kerr.
Thank you. Your analysis here of hurricane landfalls is fascinating. Is it the same in Asia, Japan and China?
In general, there's been no change. We don't have such as good a record there, but in general, we've done a lot of study. This has been a major area. I've been studying global tropical storms. We have no information that things have gotten any worse or any worse. No, they're probably remained about the same. The trouble is you don't have the good satellite data back more than 20 years or so you can't go back further with that. But you can go with landfalling storms and things, and looking at that, there doesn't seem, there's some noise and wiggle in it, but no discernible curve you can trust.
Any other questions? We've just got a couple of minutes left here. We may have satisfied for the time.
Yeah, well, thank you for letting me blow off some
Thank you.
steam. Very good. Like nobody talks to other people, so it keeps me psychologically tuned up for it.
Well, Dr. Gray, let me assure you that we'll keep this one going.